right, welcome back. This is going to be part 85 on my presentation of Dinosaurs and Man. And we're going to continue on with this interesting topic of dinosaur and human footprints that have been found at the Paluxy River in Glen Rose, Texas. And so, if you'll notice on the screen here, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Great Depression and kind of that time period with the dinosaur and human footprints, kind of what was being done. And but it says here, erosion eats at the tracks in two major ways. The flowing of the river water, that erodes it. Just the water flowing over the tracks will erode it away over a period of time. And two, when it dries up, carbonic acid from rainwater eats into the rock and causes it to crumble into small pieces, like little small flaky pieces. It just completely just disintegrates it. It's quite dramatic to see it. And you'll actually be able to see this in the Footprints in Stone video that I'll show. Aaron Judkins actually shows it. And so it just crumbles into nothing. And so, but it says during the Great Depression, and guys, I found timelines ranging from 1929 to 1939, that being the most popular. And so somewhere in that time period. And so 1929 to 1941, and then 1929 to 1939. And so 1929 to 1939 was actually, from what I remember, that was the most popular dates that was given. So you're still in that general area. And so I know it's maybe splitting hairs, but believe it or not, I actually get comments about stuff like this people will try to bring up. And so, but at any rate, it says people were trying to find ways of making money, and it was discovered that the tracks had value, with a good track bringing up to $50. The human tracks were not so valuable. They were only $10 to $25. Many locals believed that since the tracks, the human and dinosaur, were so common in that area, that they believed that they were also common in the rest of the world. They didn't have the modes of transportation that we have. And so they weren't able to travel. I mean, there's still people that have the modes of transportation that we have today that still doesn't travel a lot. And so they kind of stay in their own area. And so Sandra and I, whenever we do a lot of RVing in the cooler months, we stay just in North Carolina. That's the only place that we RV at. And so we're just as happy as a lark doing that. We don't want to go nowhere else. And so, but back then, they just couldn't. And so a lot of folks, they thought that, hey, it's so common in this area, it must be common in the rest of the area. And so, and we're going to talk about this also, the background on how the people believed. And you got to remember, up until this point here, and I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself, up until this point here, evolution had really only been around maybe a little over 100 years. And so a lot of people still believe the Bible. They still believe the Bible and still believe that God created the earth. And so I don't want to jump ahead of myself. We're going to save that for the next video, but we're going to talk about that. And guys, I'm going to give you a good kind of a brief summation on how evolution got started and kind of the key men that had really started the thing up. And so, but the uniformitarian belief versus catastrophism. And so those were the two major beliefs. And so, and again, there were a lot of people that just believed the Bible. They believed the scriptures. And so finding dinosaur and human footprints at that time, it wasn't a big deal to them. It really wasn't, because they believed the Bible. They believed that God created the earth and created it in 6 literal days. Now, George Adams was a Glen Rose mailman, and I don't know how experienced he was in archaeology, but the information that I got stated that he was an archaeologist, and he had admittedly carved a few human footprints and a number of dinosaur tracks. And guys, this right here is what really hurts good research and witnessing for the Lord, is when you got people. Now, I understand this was during the Great Depression, and people were really hard up, and they were really trying to make money at any way they could. And so, And I understand that. I understand that. But it's stuff like this that hurts the cause of Christianity and stuff like that, and trying to witness for the Lord and show really true evidence that the Bible is true. And though we're supposed to take it just on faith, it still hurts the cause. And I thought of a few things in the Bible whenever I was reading this. There's two areas of the Bible that really jumped at me. And one of them was when Moses misrepresented the Lord. The Lord had told him in the beginning, he was to strike the rock. This is when he was given water into the children of Israel. Well, the second time they were thirsty, the Lord said, this time I want you to speak to the rock. Just speak to the rock. And so Moses was so ticked off at the people, he struck it twice. And so because of that, he misrepresented the Lord, and the Lord forbade him to lead the people into the promised land. And so, which was the land of Canaan. He denied him access into it. And Joshua was the one that was allowed to bring the people into the land. He says here, and the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron, because ye believed me not to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. And so they were forbade because they did not represent the Lord in the right way. And so just like this George Adams fella, he took something that really could have been a really good thing, and because of money, the greed of money, he decides to fake some prints, and either for a joke, because he was supposedly known as a jokester, but because of that, he really hurt the cause. And even to this day, it's a big controversial thing whether some of these tracks are legit or whether they are carved prints. Now, the other one is David, King David. Whenever he had an affair with Bathsheba and had Uriah, her husband, killed, which was a good guy. This guy, Uriah the Hittite, he was a good man. And so he was trying to cover up the fact that Bathsheba was pregnant, and he was trying to get Uriah to sleep with her and have relations with her. And he wouldn't, because he was a good guy, and he didn't want his fellow men to be out there battling while he was at home having relations with his wife, and he just couldn't do it. Well, David had him killed because of it. And then David tried to be at least look like a good guy, and took Bathsheba as his own, and then she had the baby. But of course, the Lord knew all this, and sent Samuel to rebuke him. And it says, howbeit, because by this deed that David did, thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme. And then, of course, the Lord told David that the child that would be born out of that adulterous relationship, it was going to die. And so, but again, King David, a man after God's own heart, he did this wicked thing here, and he gave those that didn't even believe in the Lord, he gave them even more reasons to blaspheme the Lord, to blaspheme his name and stuff, and to make fun of him and stuff. Oh yeah, well, you Christians are claiming to be so good. Look what you did. It ain't doing you no good. And so that's the type of thing that just burns my tail. And I'm guilty of it. I've done things that I shouldn't have, and I was a poor witness. We all have. And so we really need to be careful about that, because the Lord takes that extremely serious. And so, but at any rate, going on back to the tracks, it says several dozen dinosaur tracks were removed and a number of human tracks. James and Cecil Riles quarried about 100 dinosaur tracks and only about 10 human tracks. James Riles did not feel, he did feel that the labor involved was not worth what he was getting for the tracks. There's a lot of labor involved cutting those tracks out just to get, back then, even though $50 was a lot of money back then, he didn't feel like with the labor involved, he was really getting a whole lot for it. And so Riles and other locals told how common it was to find dinosaur and man tracks together. They goes on to say a large section of good prints, both man and dinosaur, was taken out in 1934. In 1938, at an Indian trader store, which was Jack Hill was the owner, in Gallup, New Mexico, Roland T. Byrd, a paleontologist employed by the American Museum of Natural History in New York City, saw two of the human-like prints, which he called mystery tracks, and two dinosaur prints that had been removed. Now, Roland T. Byrd had 7 train carloads, and I've also seen flat cars also, of 12 to 16 inch thick limestone slabs of dinosaur tracks were extracted and numbered and from the river and shipped to the American Museum of Natural History in New York. So he went there, and now he wanted to see legit tracks, and we're going to go into him later on in a future video. He wanted to see more human tracks, but he just really found it just really hard to believe that the human tracks that he saw at that one trader's store, Indian trader store, he really thought those were just carved tracks. These are some of those footprints in that area. And this is at Dinosaur Valley State Park in Glen Rose, Texas. Of course, here you can tell that this is a old picture here, but check out that young lady kneeling down there, and look at all those tracks, and you can see the pushed up mud where it was wet at one point in time, and it just kind of pushed it up. Well, they've seen that also in some of the human tracks, the splashed up mud, and we are going to look at some photographs of some of the human tracks later on. But here's some drawings of the footprints in the area, and this is a child that's sitting in one of the dinosaur footprints. He's got his clothes on, splashing around in that. So that is one huge track. And here's some folks that are removing the tracks. Then this track here, this large block here, went to the American Museum. And so, but during this time here and the Great Depression, folks were employed to do some of this. And so there were just so many tracks, and so they were taken to a museum to also preserve them. And so here's one of the museums here that they were taken to, and they put some of the dinosaur bones next to the tracks. And so really amazing. I would really love to see this. And so here you go. Here, there's another picture of that. And so these were the tracks that were taken out of that area. We'll stop right there. And when we come back, I'm going to kind of rabbit trail just a little bit. It's going to be some good information, guys, that you guys are going to want to know. For some of you that don't really know how evolution really came about, and really, now I'm not going to go really hard in depth into this. I'm going to kind of give an overview. But it really, when I was studying this, and then I was kind of looking at, the way the people were feeling about dinosaur and man tracks really being a common thing. They really didn't think really much of it. They really thought it really around the world. They didn't say, hey, wait a minute. Aren't those supposed to be 60 to 65 million years apart from each other? How come we're seeing man and human tracks together? They got to be fake. Somebody went in there and carved those tracks and then laid all that overburden over them. So, they didn't think that. They didn't think that. And so the people in the area, they saw them. It was commonplace to see. And they believed the Bible. Evolution didn't permeate the culture by that time. And so the common folks didn't know. They didn't think really much of it. And so I got to looking at the background and evolution and kind of some of the key people that were involved with it, and really surprising, guys, just how the time period from when evolution really got going until this time here is really not that long at all. It's really not that long at all. And we're going to talk about that in the next video or two. I may have to cover 2 videos in this one section. But you guys take care. I love you. I hope the Lord blesses you real good. Bye-bye.